Hoist the treasure! Aye, aye, Captain! I don't know if it's because I played with a lot of Legos as a kid or what it was, but I just fell in love with being able to build things, manipulate things with my hands. And I played with a lot of them. But you know what's crazy is like, this is a pretty advanced set, but all of these different pieces, generally speaking, breaks down to a few basic pieces. And in fact, if you were a kid and you got one of those Lego buckets, you're not gonna get something like that and be able to build something like that. You know, that's advanced. Usually, you have to start with a brick, very much like this 2x8 Lego brick. And what blows my mind about this is if you have just 6 of these bricks, there are over 915 million ways to combine them to build something. Now, isn't that insane? Now, I'm going to show you how to use rope and sticks, kind of like this red brick. It's the starting point so you can build anything that your imagination aspires to. Now, what's really cool is there's a lot of resources out there to give you ideas, or if you just look around your house, you can honestly come up with ideas on what to build for your camp to make it a little bit more comfortable, a little bit easier to live. Now, we're so accustomed to just going to your big box store or whatever and just buying what you need, but nature provides. Now, I would certainly suggest you get some rope unless you have a lot of time on your hands and you want to make your own cordage. But with rope and sticks, you can build anything that your mind aspires to. Now, I fell in love with this part when I was a scout. You know, I took the pioneering merit badge, and of course, throughout the ranks, you got to learn how to tie knots and all that kind of stuff. And I got pretty good at it. But when I got to summer camp, we used to have troop competitions for building camp gadgets and how to kind of jazz up your tent space. And for the first day or two, you know, whenever I had free time, that's what I did. I kind of made my tent a way to be like a home away from home. That's what it was for me. So, if you're familiar with the various lashing methods, you can do the same thing. You can build towers, you can build cabins, you can build doors, you can build windows, you can do anything that you want to. You really can. So let's get started. I'm going to change really quick, and I'm going to start you out with the square lashing. All right. So before we get started in this lashing, it's going to be the square lashing, and this goes for all future lashings that you do. Here's some things I would suggest you have ready. First of all, is have a fid. You know, you don't need a fancy fid like this. You could just take a stick and, you know, whittle one out at a nice angle. That way, if you need to untie a knot or untie a lashing, these things come in handy. Okay, it'll save your hands quite a bit. Another thing I suggest is to have a knife, whether it be a pocket knife or your belt knife, something like that, because you're probably going to have to trim off some rope eventually. And you want to make sure your knots and your lashings are nice and clean. So just having, you know, nice crisp ends, just it's like the piece de resistance. You know what I mean? And of course, you need rope. Now, how much rope do you need? Now, here's the rule of thumb, quite literally almost. You're going to take the diameter of your 2 spars. Say one is a diameter of 2.5 inches, and the other one is 3.5 inches. You're going to add them together. So 2.5 plus 3.5 equals 6 inches. And then you're going to multiply it by 3 feet. Now, you may seem like, wow, that seems like a lot of rope, right? Trust me, due to all the different wraps and fraps, it'll be what you need. You know, that's just a really good way to think about it. So my poles here, they're about 1 inch and about 1 inch. So if I was to add those together, it would be 2 inches. And I'm going to multiply that by 3 feet. So now I have 6 feet. I need 6 feet of rope to do what I need to do. Now this rope here is longer than 6 feet. I'm 6'1". If I estimate this, so right there is about well, I'd say that's about 9 foot, almost 10 foot. That's 10 foot of rope, so that's plenty for what we need here. Now let's talk about some lingo. You have wraps and fraps. Wraps are going to be the over, under, over, under, over, under. The fraps is where you're going to take your rope at the end of your wraps and you're literally going to make circles around them. You're going to pull them tight, and that's going to make everything bind together really well. Okay, so you have wraps, over, under, fraps, wrapping it around. Okay, you're going to pull it tight. Another language that you need to know is upright and horizontal. So you're going to have an upright spar, like so, and you're going to have your horizontal, like so, in the case of a square lashing. See what other language you may need to know. You're going to need to learn how to tie the clove hitch. Here in the United States, we use the clove hitch. And I'm going to go over it really quick. If you want to brush up on your knots, I actually have a section of shorts in my, my library of videos, and it's dedicated to knots. So they're really quick tutorials to bring you up to speed. You also want to make sure that your ropes have either spliced ends, so you're not dealing with all the fuzz, or that they're whipped, or that they're taped. You know, some way of making sure that these things don't fray out nice and crazy. All right, I'm going to move the camera, and I'm going to show you how to do this really quick though. At this point in the video, if you found this information useful, if you like where this is going, please go ahead and click like, that way others can find it. All right. For the square lashing, you're going to start out by taking the rope, crossing it over. This is considered your running line here, and that's where your longer piece of rope is. That's where your slack. You're going to cross down and under. You should have a nice clear X. You're going to lift up the center and feed your short end underneath the center. And you're going to pull. Now you should have an X. Now this is going to be your upright. Then you're going to take your spar that is going to be your horizontal, and you're going to lay that on top. The reason why you do this is because that clove hitch, especially if you've already got this in the ground or you're already standing up, this is going to help hold this top spar while you're working. Now it's all about twisting the short end together, crossing it over, and you're going to go over, under, over, under. That is called the wrap. So we went over, under, and as you go, you want this to be as tight as you can. So we've been over twice. The rule of thumb is that you want 3 wraps and 2 fraps. This will be our 3rd wrap. Okay, so I have 3 here, I have 3 here. Now what we're going to do is we are going to wrap around twice. So we're going to cross back over. And we're going to just make circle passes around our wraps. And we want to pull good and tight. So we made 1 wrap, And this is our second wrap. And again, we're going to pull tight. And that's going to help prevent the racking of the poles. So our clove hitch was down here. We should always put the finished clove hitch on the opposite pole. So as we come here, we're going to make another clove hitch. Lift up our X and feed through the bottom. And there we have the square lashing. And we can see by the amount of rope that I have left, I have about 3.5 foot of rope. So the estimation was certainly correct. So we can see from our square lashing that there is about 4 foot of rope here. So our estimation of the amount of rope that we needed was dead on. So remember that. You take the diameter of your spars, you're going to add the two together, and you're going to multiply it by 3 feet, and that's going to give you the amount of rope that you need. And if you have a little bit of extra rope, just wrap it around several more times. That's just going to make this more sturdy, okay? No need to cut it off and have, a little bit of rope. Go ahead and wrap it around. So with the square lashing, as you can see, it's going to rack a little bit. But if we had another pole here, that would hold a tremendous amount of weight, just being 1-inch spars. If you had the larger spars, there's a lot more friction in the surface area that this rope is going to benefit you and your project. But if you had this in camp, think about things that you could use just this one thing for. You could use it, well, to hold your dishes. You could also use it as a drying rack. So if you've got a pot, you can hang it on there. You can even use it for your own personal items, whether it be your backpack. You can put it across here. Of course, I'd make the spar a lot shorter, and then you can hang your other gear implements on it. But right there, by itself, is a camp gadget. All right, now I'm going to show you how to tie the round lashing. Okay, for our round lashing, it's probably the simplest lashing, at least in my opinion. Now, to give you a hint, it'll make your project a lot easier if you put a couple pieces of firewood or some sticks or something, maybe rocks, on both ends of the poles. That way you have this open space to work under. The whole point of a round lashing is to extend the spars. So if you have a pole that's just not long enough, this will help you and take care of it. Another thing to keep in mind is that round lashings are always done in series of 2s. So you would have a section of round lashings here, and then farther up you would have a round lashing up here. So you're going to start with a clove hitch, and you're going to end with a clove hitch on the opposite spar. We're going to just make nice, even, and tight wraps. The more wraps you do, the stronger the lashing will be. Okay, once you get to this point where you now need to end it, you're going to run out of rope. You're going to take your rope and you're going to go to your closest end. And that may be a point where you may need to use a stick, or if you have a fid, because this is what's going to keep it tight. And you're going to make your X. Now you have your first round lashing. Now because of this is split, this is a gap, your next one is going to be a lot easier to make. So if we were to do this, we would take our rope, we'd feed it down at the bottom, we would have our clove hitch on this end, and we'd work our way upward to this. I'm going to show you what it looks like when that's all done. Okay, so once you're ready to go ahead and end it with a clove hitch, you're going to bring your rope down and around and feed it one last time. So like this, bring it down, around, and feed it through there. And then you're going to take your loop here, you're going to twist it once, make that X, bring it around. Now you can lift this up, see where the fit is. You got your X. You can feed your end through. Bring it down, dress it, and pull good and tight. Now you have finished your round lashing. You got your 2 wraps. This is not going to break. You're good to go to use this in another application. So what are you able to do with the round lashing? Like I said earlier, you can use this as a flagpole, you could use this for a ridge pole, you could lash this with a square lashing to 2 other trees that are nearby, and now you have a very nice rigid clothing rack, like so. So you can dry your clothes, or I don't know, you can hang things on it. You can also use this for your cook set, so you can hook things on. It's nice and rigid. It'd be a pretty long cook set, but there you go. Let your imagination guide you for whatever you need. Okay, so what if you need an A-frame? Maybe you have an A-frame style tent and you want to build a nice rigid opening that you can tie your tarp to or tie your tent to. It keeps your door open. I have a Civil War A-frame tent, and sometimes it's kind of a pain in the butt to constantly avoid that middle pole that's attached to the ridge pole. So having an A-frame makes a lot of sense in that use, so you have a nice open space. You don't have to worry about it. Horace Kephart strongly suggested that for those style of tents. So if you're interested in that, this will get you there. It's pretty much just like a round lashing, except it has a couple fraps in the middle of it. So I'm going to show you what it's done. I'm not going to show you how to lash it because, well, I already just did the round lashing. For a shear lashing, all you do is you wrap it twice. Now you want it to be looser than the round lashing, and you really only need the 3 wraps. So instead of going all the way because you're wanting that rigidity, now you want to go 3 to 5 wraps and then do your fraps, 2 fraps, and you're good to go. So let's see what it's like. Okay, since we are doing an A-frame, we're going to make sure that the ends are fairly close together. We want them to stick out, so this middle section pretty much going to go for that much as far as wraps. So that's about 4 inches, 5 inches. Let's see how many wraps that takes. Okay, so as we can see here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
Fraps. This is our first clove hitch here. We're going to do our final clove hitch on this end, since that's the side. But now we have to do our fraps. Again, we're only going to do 2 fraps. We want to make sure that this is fairly loose because we are going to be angling it. So we have 1. This is where it's very different from the round lashing, because the round lashing doesn't require the fraps. And of course we want it nice and tight on a round lashing. So we're going to pull our fraps good and tight, and now we're going to do our clove hitch on this one here. Make our X. And it's really easy to do a clove hitch on this since it's nice and loose. We bring it tight and dress it up. Now we can see that it angles and it tightens up really well. So it's good and rigid. But if you need a collapsible item, this is the lashing for that particular use. So this is our shear lashing. So we could put that up, like I said, it'd be really nice for an A-frame. So now you have your doorway that's good and open. You can also use this to support for a sawbuck. So now you can lay your logs on here, and all you would need is to attach a couple braces down here with a square lashing, and you're good to go. So you can widen this out for larger logs. You can narrow it for smaller logs. So you can adjust this for that purpose. So there you go. There's a project idea for your camp setting. A nice, easy to make sawbuck. Now, isn't that crazy? All the different things that you can do with rope and a stick, and a little bit of knowledge and some imagination. It's kind of like those Lego bricks, you know, at the beginning of the video. You can build anything. You've got the tools now to go out and create, you know, who knows how many camp gadgets or camp utensils, etc., with just a little bit of that knowledge. All right. I hope it excites you. I hope it motivates you. Now, you may notice that I didn't talk about a couple specific lashings, especially if you are a scout or if you're an outdoors person and you know all the different types of lashings. I purposely avoided several of them because they're pretty much the most common lashings that get shown on YouTube. You know, you got like the tripod lashing. Everybody does the tripod lashing. You know, put it over a fire, dangle your pot over it and cook and all that other stuff. So I think that area has been covered pretty well. I will certainly teach it in a later episode in case you're not familiar with it. Maybe you just like my style. I will teach it later, but right now I figured this is a good solid framework for that. And I hope it sets you guys off in the right direction. Now, next week I'm going to show you how to make an awesome camp gadget. I'm sure you'll like it. But I want you to do me a favor, okay? I have a request. If you've ever made a camp gadget, or maybe you have a favorite camp gadget, something that's like been really useful to you, go ahead and put it in a comment below. That way I can see it, I can learn from you, but other people who read through the comments, you know, they might learn something from you. Because that's what's awesome about this community, you know, this learning journey that we're all on. We can use this as a tool to learn from each other and grow from it. I know I certainly do. Whenever you guys give me some advice or give me some suggestions and stuff, I appreciate every single one. I really, really do. If you haven't watched this cooking video somewhere around here, you need to check that out. You know, it's going to be about cooking on a fire. Here in 2 weeks, we're not going to cook over fire. We're going to be cooking a recipe on this awesome camp stove I did an earlier video on. But I'm hoping that this video, wherever it's at, inspires you to cook outdoors. Because you can cook anything outside. You know, and you don't even need super fancy implements. You could take 2 pots together, boom, bam, you got yourself a Dutch oven. We don't have to go into like a spending craze to do this stuff. We really don't. I just like to show you guys artifacts and historical pieces that I find and how they're used, you know, but you don't need all that. You really don't. All right. Go ahead and click subscribe, and don't forget the notification button. That way you get notified when all these videos come out. Click like for me if you did like the video. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Give a kiss and hug to your loved ones. I'll see you guys next Sunday. Take care.